Modern life is loud. And I don't just mean with sound, but with reaction. Everyone responds instantly. Everyone defends immediately. Everyone speaks before they think. We live in a world that rewards the first word, the loudest opinion, the quickest comeback. But what if our ancestors learned a different, more powerful survival strategy? Far in the Arctic, in the vast frozen land of Greenland, the Kalaallit people developed a profound tool for survival. Silence. Not weakness, not avoidance, but controlled, intentional silence. The Kalaallit are the indigenous Inuit people of Western Greenland. For thousands of years, their ancestors thrived in one of the most unforgiving climates on Earth. Imagine it: brutal, freezing temperatures, months of polar darkness, extreme isolation, and the constant threat of scarcity. In these conditions, conflict wasn't just an emotional drain. It was a direct threat to life. In our modern cities, if you have a serious argument with a neighbor or coworker, you can walk away. You can find a new job, move to a different neighborhood. But in the small, tight-knit Arctic settlements, that wasn't an option. You couldn't just leave. Every hunter mattered. Every family was essential. Every single relationship was woven into the fabric of collective survival. If anger or resentment divided the group, the consequences were immediate and severe. A hunting party might fail. A family might not get the resources they need. Someone might not survive the harsh winter. So instead of shouting back, instead of escalating a conflict, they developed a culture of profound emotional restraint. When tensions started to rise, people often chose silence. They didn't interrupt. They didn't react on impulse. They didn't add fuel to the fire. They simply allowed the emotional storm to pass, both in themselves and in others. Anthropologists who have studied Inuit cultures often describe how open aggression was deeply discouraged. Disputes were frequently delayed, addressed only after emotions had cooled. Anger was often met not with more anger, but with quiet calm. Later, maybe days later, humor might be used to gently dissolve the lingering tension. But first, there was silence. Why was this so effective? Because words, once spoken in anger, cannot be taken back. The Arctic taught them a crucial lesson that modern life often makes us forget. Impulsive reaction creates escalation, but silence creates space. Space for thought, space for calm, space for resolution. Today, modern neuroscience is finally catching up, confirming what the Kalaallit have practiced intuitively for centuries. When we get into a heated argument, our amygdala, the brain's threat detector, goes into overdrive. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood our system. Our capacity for rational, logical thinking plummets. Our body enters fight-or-flight mode. In that state, our words become weapons, not tools for communication, but silence is a pattern interrupt. Taking a moment of quiet can actually slow down our nervous system. It cuts off the verbal fuel that the conflict needs to burn. It gives our prefrontal cortex, the rational part of our brain, a chance to come back online. Silence prevents us from saying things that can cause irreversible damage to relationships. Among the Kalaallit, this silence wasn't seen as awkward or passive. It was a sign of maturity. It was a display of strength and self-control. You didn't speak until your mind was steady and your heart was calm. Children learned this powerful lesson simply by observing their elders. Think about it. Long, dark winters meant families lived in close quarters for months on end. If every little irritation exploded into a full-blown confrontation, community life would be impossible. It would simply collapse. And so, emotional regulation wasn't just a personal skill. It became a form of deep cultural intelligence. Silence was strength. Now, let's contrast that with our own world. We reward the instant response. We praise strong, unwavering opinions, even if they're not well thought out. We admire dominance in a conversation. Our social media platforms are literally designed to amplify outrage and quick emotional reactions. In many workplaces, the people who speak first and loudest are often perceived as leaders. Our arguments escalate because we're trained to react, not to reflect. We interrupt because we're afraid of losing the floor. We defend our ego before we even try to understand the other person's perspective. We've forgotten the power of the pause. We've forgotten that sometimes the most intelligent, powerful, and constructive thing you can do is to say nothing at all. The wisdom of the Kalaallit isn't just an interesting anthropological fact. It's a practical guide for navigating the noise of our own lives. The next time you feel that surge of anger, that immediate impulse to fire back a response online or in person, try their ancient strategy. Take a breath, choose a moment of silence. It's not about surrendering. It's about taking control. It's about giving yourself the space to respond with wisdom instead of just reacting with emotion. You might find that in that quiet space, you discover a better way forward, a way that builds bridges instead of burning them. In a world that can't stop talking, a little bit of strategic silence might be the superpower we all need. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing for more stories about the hidden wisdom in our world. See you next time.